there are over 300 million Indians on the move every day. With rapid urbanization, we are looking at an explosive growth in the mobility space to match the rapid economic growth in India. Today, we are going to talk about one such mobility company whose name has become a verb as people use it to describe getting around their cities or town. Be it in cars, autos, bikes, and in the coming days, buses as well. We are talking about Uber, and we have the president of Uber India and South Asia, Prabhjeet Singh, to talk about how he sees the mobility landscape shaping up and some very interesting industry-first interventions they are making in India. Prabhjeet, thank you very much for your time and good to have you here. First things first, a lot of your riders were in for a surprise when you showed up at their doorstep as their Uber driver. How did that come about?
Oh, that's, I was hoping that would be far more discreet than it ended up being. This is something which I do once every few months, take an Uber car for a spin and really get to understand the perspective from a driver's side, get some live feedback from riders. And this time, it again was increasingly fascinating. Met some super interesting riders, got some pretty great insights on what we can do to make our product and service better, and also ended up truly appreciating how hard this is, and a massive respect for drivers who have to do this day in and day out.
What's the biggest lesson you took away from that experience?
Look, there's several feedback, but I think that for me the biggest realization was that it's important for all of us to continue to appreciate what the life of a driver is, where we may be engaging with them for one trip, but remember that individual has probably gone through 6 to 7 trips before that, may have had some hard experiences while entering your complex, may have had a breakdown while on the way, may have had some big traffic snarls while getting to your location. I think we just need to cut a little bit more slack. Doesn't take away from the fact that we need to continue improving our service quality and how our drivers provide the experience. I have met riders who were, without even knowing that who I was, were thoughtful around respectfully telling me the direction to their apartment, apologized if they were late in coming out. At the same time, I have met drivers who have often appreciated to say, look, here's a rider who's in a rush, for example, or here is an elderly person, I'm going to drive slower. Here is someone who's going to rush to a hospital. Let me kind of find a way to get and pick them up faster. So I think it's a community which is truly thriving. Yes, there are instances when you do millions of such interactions where there will be a certain percentage which don't go as well you would like. I think and our job is to keep making sure we take that feedback and work on it. One of the core realizations for me also was the difference in which if you're sitting in a commercially licensed car, how the external environment perceives you. So for example, I did get a trip from my own apartment complex, and the security guard didn't recognize that it was me in the driver's seat, and thereby the way he engaged and the expectations he had were very different from the way he would have normally had. I think there's some reflection to do. How do we continue to build that empathy and respect independent of who you are and what you are doing? At the end of the day, an Uber driver is out there earning a livelihood, doing it with a lot of hard work. And I think the wider ecosystem should continue to appreciate that even more.
And we are here in Gurgaon today. And what you're launching is a very interesting initiative that puts the driver front and center of what you do. Could you talk to us about that?
So today we are launching Uber's first driver advisory council. This is the first national edition. We have more than 35 plus drivers who have gathered in person, and in a closed door environment, they will give us feedback. We will hear new suggestions from them. We'll also run through them some product ideas which we are working on. Again, the idea being we should be able to, in a fair, direct manner, really get feedback from people who are the backbone of this business, which is the drivers. What we've also made sure is to make this process very, very objective and to have oversight of an independent body. We have a third party who is part of the conversation, who will hold us accountable and will make sure that the dialogue is fair and objective on both sides.
But what are you hoping to achieve by the end of this?
Look, at the end of the day, I expect to really focus on feedback on 3 fronts: the product, the process, and the partnerships. At the end of the day, we exist as a platform to serve earners, which are the drivers, who can then provide the service to the consumers. So if we're going to get feedback on product features we should be launching, we're going to run through them ideas which are already in the pipeline and tweak it based on the feedback. Second is feedback on processes. We provide support to drivers on safety processes, support processes. We provide them certain appreciation for support beyond earnings. For example, our Uber Care program provides them support on microloans, etc. We want to get feedback on those. And then third is partnerships. Increasingly, we want to make sure that drivers are able to have a holistic safety net and also have a holistic access to reduce the cost of operation.
So Prabhjeet, here's the question. Your drivers are not your employees, right? They are gig workers. And around the world, there's a raging debate between how you treat your gig workers, especially for companies like you, for Swiggy, other company, Airbnb, etc. In fact, you have pioneered this whole gig economy. I want to ask you, what are the big challenges when you deal with gig workers? And they have concerns too, right? For example, the whole debate is about how do you give them a social security net? So what's Uber's view and stand on that?
When it comes to India, we truly believe that livelihood creation is going to be one of the biggest challenges for us as a society and as a country. And gig work provides that solution which is not binary. It's not about full-time work, neither is it about work which is completely independent. We believe the gig work with certain checks and balances, where we are able to create flexible earning opportunities for drivers when they want, at the same time a safety net when they need, is the way forward. And we as a platform do recognize that we have an obligation and a role to play towards that. And visualize that coming out of the pandemic with one of the biggest paths to livelihood creation is going to be through gig work. I'm very, very pleased with the way the government has come out with the Code on Social Security, which creates first of its kind legal framework to provide safety net to gig workers. It keeps the flexibility. At the same time, it makes platforms like us equal contributors to their welfare. And both the houses of parliament have already passed it. We are awaiting and looking forward to supporting the notification and implementation of that. I do think that will create a framework which many other countries will then want to replicate.
Prabhjeet, how will this work then? I mean, to provide a social security net for people who are not your employees, where do the funds come from? How does this work?
So, Shreya, the first thing is independent of Code on Social Security, there are multiple initiatives we're already taking. For example, we provide insurance cover for drivers when they are driving on the platform. We provide them access to microloans. We also provide them access to certain kind of medical facilities through partnerships with, for example, teleconsultation partners. What a Code on Social Security does is it formalizes the commitments which a platform has. So a certain percentage of the revenue which the platform is generating has to be contributed towards a common framework which the government has set up through the eShram portal. And then the government has provided partnerships with multiple third parties which will provide insurance covers, disability cover, maternity benefits, etc. Now, what that does is the scale of this with the industries coming together, not just ride hailing, but food delivery and other platforms coming together, ensures that the best and unified services can be provided as a safety net to everybody in the universe.
Will that be enough to keep your drivers with you? I ask you this question because I know why Uber works for me, right? It's quick, it's fast, it gets me from place A to place B at a click of a button. But your drivers who are not your, not your workers, not your employees, have flexibility, great amount of flexibility and mobility. I mean, they could be working for you for 2 hours and they could be working for someone else for 3 hours. Is providing them a security net, will that be enough to keep them with you, or you think more will need to be done?
Look, I think at the end of the day, flexibility is something we celebrate. I want the drivers to be flexible. And that is what attracts millions of gig workers to platforms like us. They should be able to log on, log off when they want. They should be able to take the time off when they want. They should be able to work on multiple platforms if they want. We have drivers who certain hours of the day are with ride-hailing players. Other hours of the day, they're actually driving as part of another tour operator. We have drivers in bike taxis who are delivering food in certain hours of the day. And during the evening hours, which is a rush hour for transport, they are actually driving on our platform. So flexibility is something we actually celebrate and encourage. Second, the reason why drivers will continue to be attracted to the platform is the opportunity to be your own boss. I think that is a true magic of gig work. As we speak with drivers, and today, as we're already engaging with them, everybody acknowledges that gives them power and control in their lives, which is something they appreciate a lot. And then third is we need to ensure that there are sustainable earnings. We need to make sure that when they log on, for the hours they put in, for the effort they put in, they should be earning respectable, sustainable earnings. That is the job of the platform to ensure. I think if you're able to ensure these three things, which is flexible access, sustainable earnings, and a chance to be completely independent in how they operate, coupled with the safety net, both Uber provided and government facilitated, I think that formula should work and should encourage hundreds of millions of new gig workers to enter the category.
Prabhjeet, correct me if I'm wrong, something I always wanted to ask. When Uber started in India, I remember it was Uber X, and you had luxury cars, and then there were hatchbacks, and then there are autos and mobiles, and now I believe buses as well. So what is this evolving journey, and how do you decide this is the way the business needs to go? It's very interesting.
Look, in some form that's a DNA at Uber, which is we continue to innovate rapidly and respond to what our consumers need, both drivers and riders. We started in many cities as a luxury service, but at the same time we realized that the magic of what the technology offers should be available to a much larger rider and driver base. And then we moved to launch Uber Go product, which is an India first innovation. We launched Cash, we changed form factors to, as you said, 3-wheelers, 2-wheelers, and now buses, shuttle buses are on the platform. At the end of the day, we want to serve India and Bharat. The way India and Bharat move are not necessarily through air-conditioned cars. We move through 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, buses, transit. And we believe that Uber as a platform has to be the technology layer which binds it all together. My ideal world is today when you need to go from Gurgaon to Noida, you should be able to open the Uber app, and we should be able to advise you from here to the metro station. You take a 2-wheeler, which will come to your location. There, you can also book a DMRC ticket through the app so that you can then go through the gate very easily. By the time you land, come out of the station, say in Noida, there should be an Uber pool vehicle waiting for you, which allows you to then get to your destination. And this entire trip should be seamless, magical, digitally enabled. We are not very far from getting there. I think it's a journey, and I won't be surprised in a couple of years we will have even more innovations coming through what we do in India.
My last question, what do you do with the dual feedback? You have feedback from the rider, of course, for the driver, and the rider is giving, so the driver is giving the rider feedback as well. What do you do with this feedback, and how does it help you improve your business?
Look, we have always believed respect is a two-way street, and feedback on both sides is the integral part for us to capture that. Every trip, we encourage riders and drivers to give feedback. We then have data analysts and algorithms which are processing the data in aggregate, which allows us to do multiple things. Number one, for example, we are able to then improve the routing logic, the matching efficiencies at a network level. And that makes a huge difference. And even if we can, for example, shave off a couple of seconds required in the route in which the driver is going to pick up a rider, or we can encourage a rider to walk a little distance extra. Second, we take that feedback on the driver's side and we provide them customized feedback on what they can do to improve their service to the drivers, to the riders. This is something many drivers take very, very seriously. And in certain one-off cases, if there are extreme feedbacks, we also then end up taking action on both riders and drivers as per the community guidelines. It is important to be able to then hold the sanctity of the platform and the guidelines true. And the third is this data also helps us truly work with city planners over a period of time. I recall a couple of quarters back, we had worked with multiple city governments to define, for example, a piece of research which suggested that on the biggest day of traffic in Delhi, which happens to be Dhanteras, which are the parts of the city which actually get congested in which hours, and can road diversions be planned in a way which will then allow the traffic to be managed. Now, early days, I would imagine that aggregate data of this kind is something we can contribute in a much more meaningful way for the cities to become far more livable. So it's really the heart of what we do as a technology company. And we hope that through this measure, we are able to make the platform more reliable, affordable, and safer for every citizen who is using the platform and for every driver who's driving with us.
Prabhjeet, good to chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great speaking with you.
At Uber's first Driver Advisory Council, 35 drivers from across the country came into Gurgaon and sat across the table with Uber executives.
तो हमने ऑटो लॉन्च किया, मोटो लॉन्च किया, कार्स में भी हमने अनेक तरह की प्रोडक्ट्स लॉन्च किए, रेंटल्स, इंटरसिटी हो गया. बट ये आपको ये बताने की कोशिश है कि उबर जो है राइड हेलिंग में जितना हो सके उतने एरियाज में एंटर करना चाहती है, एंटर किया है उसने ऑलरेडी. और हमारा कोशिश ये रहेगा कि जो एरियाज में हम ऑपरेट करते हैं वहाँ पे सबसे बढ़िया सर्विस दें.
Mediating this conversation was Aapti, the Bangalore-based think tank which forms the independent review board of Uber's Driver Advisory Council. Dr. Saryu Natarajan is the founder of Aapti Institute and joins us for a quick chat. Saryu, good to have you here on the show. My first question to you is a simple one. Why would a company like Uber need an independent third party to try and understand what their drivers want or need?
Right, I think that's a very interesting question. I think it mostly has to do with the fact that there's a need for independence for efforts of this sort. It's very easy for drivers to get carried away when they see the presence of the company. But if you have an independent third party mediating it, playing a role of aggregating voices, thinking through what might work, allowing drivers that forum and that sense of accountability. That's, I think, the critical reason why Uber has invited Aapti to sort of be the internal review board for the Driver Advisory Council.
So what do we expect out of this Driver Advisory Council? You have a set of drivers who've traveled all the way from across the country. Aapti has come in as well. What does this conversation look like, and what have you achieved by the end of it?
Right. I think there's two parts to the achievement. The first part is in constituting the Driver Advisory Council in and of itself. The second, and that's the deeper part of it, is that it allows drivers to, in an independent setting, air their grievances on the one part, but also talk about and develop and co-create solutions that might actually work.
This is a best practice you feel that more businesses need to include?
I absolutely think so. I think that it's very important for the platform economy, particularly, to be taking initiatives of this sort to bring together earners on their platform and the platforms themselves. It's important in other industries as well, but definitely when it's technology mediated and there's a certain amount of invisibility about how work happens and what there's a sort of you're not able to see who's on the other side. So this humanizes the process and allows people to talk to each other.
Before I let you go, my final question, we look at the Uber experience from our point of view.
Right.
What's the point of view of the driver when it comes to the rider?
Right. Right, that's a very interesting question, and I think one that should be asked a lot more. I think Uber has provided a fantastic opportunity to several individuals in different parts of the country to make money, to earn income. And I think that that's a very significant contribution that you can't walk away from. What that has also meant is that there are several challenges that drivers experience, partly born out of engaging with digital systems, partly born out of what it means to work in an urban area, and also what it is to interact with customers in a form and fashion that you hadn't interacted with before. Like hailing an auto is a different thing than than seeking a car ride. So I feel like that is what differentiates this conversation from others that have happened about self-governance and those kinds of mechanisms, but it's also in some way a sense of what drivers think about the ride experience. So there's an opportunity, but a lot more needs to be done.
Good to chat. Thank you so much, Saryu.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you. This initiative is aimed at improving the driver's experience on Uber. Let's hear from these drivers who are now newly appointed advisory council members.
मेरा नाम आशीष है और मैं दिल्ली से आया हूँ। मुझे इस डीएसी मीटिंग में ऐड किया गया, मुझे बुलाया गया, उसकी मुझे बहुत खुशी है। मेरी जो एक्सपेक्टेशंस है यहाँ पे वो ये है कि अगर मैं यहाँ पे आया हूँ तो मेरी हो सकता है जो अर्निंग अभी है उससे मेरी अर्निंग बढ़ जाए। तो मैं यही सोचता हूँ कि जो हमारी पार्टनर्स की अर्निंग है, मेन जो मुद्दा है वो अर्निंग है, वो अगर बढ़ जाती हैं तो बहुत अच्छा रहेगा।
ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ಬಂದು ಸತೀಶ್ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಾನು ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿಂದ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ನನ್ನ ಡ್ರೈವಿಂಗ್ ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬಂದು ಆಟೋ ಓಡಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ ಮೇಡಮ್. ನಾನು 4 ಇಯರ್ಸಿಂದ ನಾನು ಡ್ರೈವಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಊಬರ್ ಇದರಿಂದ. ನನಗೆ ಅರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಅಂದ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಮೇಡಮ್. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಈಗ ಟ್ರಿಪ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಾದಮೇಲೆ ಸೊ ಅದರಿಂದ ನನಗೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಈ ಕಂಪನಿ ನನಗೆ ಸಹಾಯ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ ಮೇಡಮ್. ತುಂಬ ಕಷ್ಟ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ನನಗೆ ತುಂಬ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಅಷ್ಟು ಅರ್ನಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ಊಬರ್ ಕಂಪ್ನಿಗೆ ಚಿರಋಣಿಯಾಗಿರ್ತೀನಿ. ನನಗೆ ತುಂಬ ಇಷ್ಟ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಡ್ರೈವಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ.
मैं उम्मीद कर रहा हूँ मेरे को यहाँ से अच्छा रेफरेंसल मिले, मेरे को अच्छी सीख मिले, हाँ, और यहाँ से मेरे को जो मेरी समस्या हो हल हो जाए अच्छी तरह। मैं ऊबर के साथ जब जुड़ा था मेरे को कमाई उस टाइम कम था। अभी तो ऊबर के साथ अच्छा कमाई हो रहा, मेरा अच्छा इनकम है।
Yeah, hi, my name is Sarathi. I'm from Kolkata. I'm associated with Uber for the last 3 years, and I'm here as a DSE member. Want to voice out my concerns and also advise certain inputs on the technology in front, which would help us to do the service in a better manner. We think we would be able to go beyond our expectations with this kind of a council meeting, which would happen quarterly as said by the sir. So that's good enough for all of us. Primarily speaking, whatever the issues are, we would be highlighting in some time, and I'm sure with the appropriate team coming here from Uber and the Apti team, we will be able to voice out our concerns, and I think personally we should be able to cope up and get results accordingly. Journey with Uber has been good. It is an independent platform where even it's not a mandatory thing that a professional cannot work out here. I, being into the other line of industries, now I am a full-timer, and I'm quite happy with the Uber services.